We have been doing this a year and a half, almost. We're about to go to our third season in January.
Great.
And
You'll be in the black soon, don't worry.
I don't know if we ever will. I don't know that I want to know what that means, but we've had a list of people that
And you finally got down to me. Been going alphabetically here. We got to the W's.
But the more famous people we get, the more nervous I get because
and you're totally calm today.
That's where I was headed with that. I appreciate you saying that. And normally I will say, hey, I remember when we first met.
Yeah, you and I talked about this. Yeah, so I don't exactly remember. This had to be a memorable occasion because I don't exactly. It's like I've always known you, and I don't really know why. But God puts some people in your life for a reason.
Do you remember me?
I remember the day I met Dusty.
So tell me what that was like.
It was at Reba's house, and you were doing some work with the Rambos, McGuire's, and had been a long time, friend of the family and all that stuff. So I got to know him. He was at another label, and then came over here. And so I've been with Dusty through various portions of life. Known you longer though. Yeah. I just don't remember the origin. I think maybe
I have that effect on people.
I think maybe you're a lot older than me, but I'm not sure.
I remember at one point you were at my house playing on some tracks.
What was that? Okay, so did that work out? Did we get any money?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Have I called you since?
Do you need the number of the union? Because I've got it. No, I'm just kidding. I hope this is okay because I feel really great. At home here.
This is exactly how. Okay. Yeah.
He's the best.
And you're kind of used to being on camera. So
well, I've done my share of that. Yeah,
you have done your share.
This is this month is 32 years with the Gaithers.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, 32, and it's gone fast, and it's been wonderful, and I wouldn't trade it. It's a lot of traveling, and now we don't do as much, and so when you're traveling all the time, you think, oh gosh, this traveling, and then when you cut it back, you go, I miss the traveling. So it's grass is greener a little bit, but
there's a weariness that comes from that, but there's also an energy that comes with it.
That's true, and Mr. Gaither has been wonderful to me. He and Gloria have just been. I feel like I've had a 32-year master class at the hands of a true master, a songwriter, programmer, producer. You could go on and on. But I love his programming. I love the way he puts a concert evening together. Yeah, it's moments. Incredible. He strings moments together. A lot of folks don't see that side of it. They might see maybe the more musical side of it, or some see the marketing side of it. You see what you want to see there. But I'm always amazed at how he strings moments together and creates an evening. A lot of people don't go at it with that in mind, and he does.
And it reminds me of the old line that Bob Benson said, You can't make a moment happen, but you can live in a way where you know what to do with it when it does.
Whoa, what a great quote.
But that defines Bill Gaither.
Yeah.
And he has always been aware of the things that moved him. And he lets, he lets other people look good.
Yeah, it's true.
He's always good about talent, push talent. When you look back to the earliest years, he's given platforms to so many artists.
Oh, so many.
Steve Green, Sandy Patty, Carmen,
George Beverly Shea. There was
Whiteheart,
Moses.
Moses was in there.
Jesus, the Parasites.
So Bill started out writing for Ben Spear.
Yeah. Go figure. The King is coming.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Wow.
And so I wrote for Ben. Mm-hmm. And back when I played with the Spears, I would ask. I was so fascinated with Gaither stories because as a writer, you can't not be affected by somebody like that.
Sure.
So I would say, so what was it like in the early days? And Ben told me a fascinating story. And Ben said that every Monday morning, Bill would call Ben, and you knew their friendship right up until the very end.
Until the end, yeah.
And Ben said that Bill would call every Monday morning, and he would say, so what song worked the best? Well, you get that because you understand that's where he's always wanted to know.
Yep.
And then Ben would tell him what worked and what didn't work. And Bill would say, you know what? Next time put that song second and see if that changes how you're...
He's good at moving those puzzle pieces around. He knows exactly what to do.
And he would even say, put this in a different spot on your record table and see if that makes. Well, I love that way of thinking.
I do too. He's quite good at that, and he is always poring over the knowledge. He'll go to the table, our record table, the next day and say, "Now, what they asked for and what did they not?" You know, because he, and it's not about pushing something. He's looking at it. It's going to go back to programming.
Yeah.
I didn't do my job as a programmer, is what he's thinking. You know, in that situation. Now, you were there with Ben in the mid '70s. When was this?
81 through 86.
Yeah, you're not quite as old as I thought you were.
I can't be. I'm not going to. Dusty is.
I'm not going to sit on your lap at Christmas time anymore.
Well, you know,
I've not gotten one thing I asked for all these years.
So another great line from Ben about Bill Gaither was, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Dusty, or not, but I said, so Ben, when did you know something good was?
He just felt like something good was about to happen.
That was a perfect. That was a perfect.
If you tee him up, I'm going to hit him.
I got into that. I can't go this easy on Kevin. But I said, you know, there was something that you had to, because he was a writer, and Ben was the one who told Bill, if you're serious about writing, you need to consider starting your own publishing company. Mm-hmm. Well, now
that's exactly what he did.
Yes, and probably the worst business decision anybody ever made was to tell Bill Gaither, hey, you shouldn't write for me, you should write.
Exactly.
And Ben said, I said, was there a defining moment? And Ben said, yeah. He said, one Monday morning when he called, he said, I don't even know that Bill realized he did it. But he started talking about, instead of how many records he sold that weekend, he started talking about how many boxes of records.
Yeah. Funny.
Wow.
That's funny. Wow. They were taking off, boy. It was just amazing. Yeah. But had it not been for people like the Spears, people like Doug Oldham, you know, those people in the beginning who were singing his songs and getting his songs out there, the story would have been quite different today. He's quick to give recognition to those people, you know.
And usually, you know, most successful people are. He's quick to make the joke on himself too. And he and Ben had a great rivalry of just not rivalry.
They were great. They would we would always do the thing. They would be standing up there, and Ben had a little songbook that he would pitch on our concerts, you know, and Bill would be thumbing through it, and he'd say, and there's Ben, you're about 10 years old, and he'd say, I was 4 years old in that picture. He'd say, and there you are playing a mandolin. He'd say, it's a ukulele. And he'd say, and you have your singing school down in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. He'd say, it's in Nashville. And then my line was, from here it looks like I'm watching Grumpy Old Men on TV.
I remember that.
And that went for years, and it was so funny. And Ben was great with that, and he got as big a kick out of that little shtick, you know, I think, as any of us. I got a kick out of when Ben would forget the words to something. He forgot the words to, Rex Nealon was, so here's a beautiful story. We were singing I'm Winging My Way Back Home on the second half one night. Rex Nealon, Ben Spear, Connie Hopper, and I don't know who the other one would have been. I can't remember. And might have been Guy. Actually. And so, but Connie was the alto. Anyway, I think it's as I travel along. Is that the verse, right? Mm-hmm. And so
that's on the Jericho Road.
Okay, so that's what Rex fed Ben in his ear.
Sure he did.
Instead of, because it's the same melody, the same kickoff melody there.
You could do that back then.
Yeah, you could. And so he fed him the lyric to Jericho Road, and he sang it. If you said it in this ear, it came out. You know? It was one of the funniest moments I've ever seen, and we stopped everything.
That's awesome.
And Bill said, no. It's and he said the lyric, whatever the lyric is, and we kick it off again. And Bill said, Rex said, as I travel along, and it went again. It was hilarious.
There's an old story about, I think you know Donnie Sumner. Mm-hmm. A lot of Donnie Sumner stories we probably won't share, but one of the funniest guys. He was evidently singing that I believe for every day, you know, and forgot the words, and somebody fed him the line, and what came out was, I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a child is born.
Such a profound lyric.
Yes. So it's something in China, maybe, I don't know.
But, so funny. I love it.
But I love those old stories, and and what, somebody like you has got to watch from a pretty amazing seat.
We had so I won't name the name here because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but we had a guy, we were in his part of the country, and he was a pretty well-known gospel singer, and he came that night. Bill said, "Hey, sit up here on the second half and sing Canaan Land." He said, "Sing Canaan Land." Moses led God's children 40 years, that.
Jeff Gibson.
Yeah, but he says, "Sing Canaan Land." And so okay, so he goes over, he probably goes to the car and plays it and woodsheds it, and comes back in, sing the verse to Canaan Land. He meant Beulah Land, Squire's song. And
different
so
song.
we come to the verse of Beulah Land, and it was Moses, it was totally wrong. Yeah, he was trying to squeeze that lyric into, I'm kind of homesick. And it was a beautiful moment. It was a beautiful moment. And Bill was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." But it was Bill's fault because he told him the wrong song. Just like he went for years into a truck stop asking for a waffle, thinking he was asking for a pancake, I explained that one to me. And they bring him a waffle, and he'd go, "I didn't order this. I ordered a waffle." And, he ordered a pancake, but he said waffle.
Oh, that's funny.
Gloria, they wouldn't remember this, but Spears sang at that little Nazarene church on their, not on their property, but, that
sure.
kind of adjoins it.
Right.
And again, I was
In the corner right there.
Yeah,
Another one you
I was so intimidated by Gaithers, and Spears. I always knew if they could have carried their own equipment, they wouldn't have carried a band. That was
Yes, thank God for this.
right.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right.
So I'm up playing, and and I see Bill and Gloria slip in, and they're on the back row, and I'm trying,
Right.
but pretty nervous.
Right.
So afterwards, I meet Gloria for the first time, and she says, "So why weren't you smiling?"
Oh my.
And that was not hello, but it was pretty close to hello.
Yeah, right.
Why weren't you smiling? And I didn't know what to say because I'm meeting a hero,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
it's going badly.
it's going horribly bad. And I said, they don't come to see me anyway.
Oh.
And she said, "Let me tell you something." She said, "The communication is only as good as the weakest link on the platform."
Whoa. Yeah.
And that's been way back in the 80s.
It's
and
good.
I have used that. Sometimes I'll go hear
Yeah.
somebody, and sometimes I'll see a drummer, and they're way into it, and they know that they're not being shown all the time, but just in case they are.
Yeah.
And Ben would hone in on that kind of. They would, when we got a video camera, they would film it, then we had to watch it.
You guys would record your services and isolate one track every night, right?
Yes.
And nobody knew who they were isolating until you got on the bus. Is that right?
So you get up to go to bed, and Ben would go, "Hey, I need you to stay up for a little bit."
Yeah.
And you go, "Oh, stink, it was me tonight."
It was me. Yeah.
And it might be Faye, it might be Brock.
Right. Oh my gosh. But that's the way you get better. That sounds kind of dirty, but that's the way our sound checks in the afternoon are so brutal. And we've closed them. We used to have some of the ushers would slip in or something and sit in and hear the Gaithers rehearse, but it's so painful when we do. No, you're still flat. You're still flat, I mean, because we work on it, and the band works. We're in there a half hour before anybody else, just trying to get the grooves going.
So Dusty, when you first heard Kevin, was it with Gaither, or did you?
He was overwhelmed. His response was.
I remember seeing him with Gaither. I've always been a fan of Kevin. I remember some of the early Gaither videos, and I would take when I was there with Dottie or something.
Right.
Kevin would always be there, and he was all. I always knew he was funny, but after Mark quit doing all the funny stuff, you still did some of that stuff. But then when Mark left, Mark, I love you. But Kevin is one of the funniest people ever.
Mark and Bill has such a great.
They do have a great. But you have picked, because everybody wondered what's going to happen. I mean, I remember a lot of people in the industry were saying, "Oh, Mark's stepping going doing his own thing, whatever that. And Kevin just so perfectly. It's just, and I know you've done it before.
Bill and I have a thing, and as he and Mark as well. But it's different.
It's
very different.
It is.
More, I don't know what words to put on it there actually, but Mark was always over the top and zany, in your face. And mine was a little more covert, And it was weird. We had to overcome the thing of why is the guitar player talking and why is he sitting back there?
I was going to ask that question. Was that a big?
It is a little interesting. So I met. So go ahead and ask me. How'd you and Mr. Gaither meet? Go ahead and do it. Got to preface this.
No,
with that.
no. Go ahead and answer it, and then I'll ask the next question on top of that.
How's that? That's good. Oh, so I know the station you work for. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So we actually met. Ask me what my favorite song is.
With the Dumpling Valley Boys, right? You're close, though.
You know what Dumpling Valley?
You were with Wendy Bagwell.
I was, yeah. I was.
All right, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, how did you meet
those
Mr.
were good
Gaither?
years. I was starting my session career in Nashville. I wanted to be a session player, musician, and producer for years, and so I'd moved here and was starting that. Was with Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters, and so that was my weekend job. Through the week, I'm in the studios hammering out demos for every struggling songwriter.
Yeah.
Don't point at me when you say that.
And still waiting for that check to clear. But so I got subbed in by Ben Spear. I was doing a lot of work for Ben, and a guitar player canceled on a Gaither session, and he said Bill Gaither's coming to town to produce a record, and it was the record he did on the Statesman when he put them back together. This is about 91, something like that. And Biney English and Johnny Johnny the tenor. Perrick, yes, was in there. And
I got something right.
Very good. Years. He's never been right.
He's got trivia. Tenor trivia right here.
Yes, right there it is. There it is.
Very good. So anyway, we...
I deserve that. Go for it.
That's so good. I'm so happy.
Yeah,
I'm so happy.
I edit these. So
No, you're leaving that in. You are leaving that in.
Okay, so I got subbed in as a guitar player on the recording session, and I don't know who I was subbing for. I was so glad that they got a better gig that day because I met Bill Gaither and I wanted to, and he didn't say a word to me all day. We tracked all day. He never said one word. It was as if I did not exist. And then the next week I got a call. He wants to do another record. Can you make this date? So he didn't say a word to me, but I got booked back, which is, that's the Sally Field thing. You like me. So I got booked back. We did the second session. He didn't say a word all day. He never looked me in the eye. He never said hi. He never said a word. 2 days I worked for him and he never said anything. And I thought, now this is a strange guy. This is really strange. And so I was getting, everybody's got an insecurity. If you're in this business, you have a little, and I'm so, confident until about the end of the second day. And I'm going, I don't think he likes me. They called and booked me back for a third day. So a month later or something, I show up for that date. And I said to Mr. Gaither, I said, is the guitar working for you? Is it okay? Which is a stupid thing to say. I'm needy. Please soothe me. So and he went, what? And I said, is the guitar okay? And he went, oh yeah, just stay out of the way of the piano.
He said that?
Just stay out of the way of the piano. So I said, okay. And I had a dear friend of mine, Bobby All, who I wouldn't have had any work in this town had not been for Bobby All. And I went to Bobby because he spoke Gaither. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, he means he's digging what you're doing. He said, you're staying out of the way, you're doing the thing, because everything is about in quartet music, and that's what this was. This was, Blackwoods and Statesmen were the quartets, and so it was all about the piano. And we had a great piano player. I think Otis played piano on that. Wow. And so just in hands is what he was saying. But I didn't speak that, and I was really nervous. And so
that's interesting.
So we didn't hit it off. But he heard me, I would heckle him. I would, he would say, well, let's cut this song. And I'd say, well, get the rest of these producers out of here and let's do, or something. Just kind of snarky, And he liked that. He thought that was funny. And so we hit it off, and we would banter in the studio. And so in all these sessions that led up to me ever going with the vocal band, we had that little banter thing, and he just enjoyed that. So by the time Mark left the first time, Mark just leaves on a whim.
Whenever he wants to.
He left to eat Thai food one time and then quit and came back.
That's awesome. That is so true, probably.
But so that sort of got a little more prominence. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd just still be a guy in the back, doing whatever. And they put a camera on me, and it was a little dysfunctional, a little weird, at first to have. It was before Leno had his guitar player, a band leader guy, and so. So it was, people started doing this, and what is happening? And it took a little while to get some footing with an audience there, and artists on stage are laughing, but people are going, "What? Why is he doing?" That was a little weird, I think, at first. It would have been for me too. So.
But I've watched, because I'm a guy watching the moments, how they come together, and there've been times I've seen him nod at you. And he didn't have to say anything.
Yeah, I speak Gaither now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I love that he has said that several times. I speak Gaither. Mm-hmm. Speak Gaither. Gaither.
He'll turn and say, if you're watching this, and he is a dear friend, and I would say this if were he sitting here, because he'll never watch this. But it's all gray in here. We need drapes or something, some kind of set budget to move people. But anyway,
okay.
But he stammers, and so he'll turn around and go, "Hi," which is because he lives, or if it's, King is coming. So I've learned that over the years, and whatever that skill is, I seem to have cultivated that.
But that chemistry
brought me tens of dollars.
You could say, well, Mark left and you created that, but that's not how that works. The chemistry is you allow it.
It's very true. Very true.
And the longer you allow that chemistry, the more you understand how to use it, but you can't create it.
And it's based on an extreme admiration. Yeah. I was such a fan of Harvey Korman and Tim Conway. I loved that. And I studied how, Conway would do the rehearsal. They would have a rehearsal on Saturday afternoon, and then they would run cameras, and then he would make changes in what he was going to do and go to the director and go to everybody and block the shots, everybody but Harvey. and he would, spring it on Harvey cold. And so the whole sketch.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the sketch about the dentist
episode.
Yeah, with the Novocaine, and he shot himself, and he's trying to actually operate on the tooth, And
it was one of the most successful shows in America. But what do people still? Yes, they remember Carol Burnett. They remember Harvey and Tim. Out of everybody, they had Vicki Lawrence. You had. The other guy, Lyle Wagner. Yeah. But they remember, that's exactly right. But and
it gives testimony to this, too, that that was family humor. There was nothing even suggestive. There was nothing blue about it. And family humor works when it's done really well.
I totally agree.
And you know what? You've gotten to watch, you talk about how much you've learned from him, which is true.
He's learned nothing from me. Is that where you're going?
Well, that's not where I was headed, but that's probably true.
But let's camp out there for a while.
You got to work. How many years were you with Wendy Bagwell?
5 years. Five of the best years of my life.
So there's another master communicator.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dustin, you remember much about Wendy?
Yeah, I came to Word in the very latter years of him being at Canaan Records. Mm-hmm. I got to see him a couple of times, but I did not know them. I met him, but it was so fast. He
was amazing.
Everybody said that. Yeah. Everybody said that.
But he was a former Marine. He was decorated for bravery. He shot, I forget how many, and saved his platoon. Wow. I mean, you never heard this stuff because he wouldn't talk about it. But he was so funny on and off stage.
But it was great on the bus. He had a pace to the tempo to the comedy. And what I always thought was fascinating about him, people would show up, you know how somebody would tell a joke and they'll say, "Stop me if you've heard this." Mm-hmm. people would come to hear him tell a joke that they already knew how it was going to end, because they wanted to hear him tell it again, right?
This is a guy, if you don't know who this is, Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters. They were big in the 60s. They were the first gospel group to tour overseas, first gospel group to play Carnegie Hall.
First gold-selling record.
That's right.
Very first with the Rattlesnake song.
That's right. And so they were big in the 60s and then 70s, and then I was with them in the 80s, on the backside of all of that. And 5 years, we told the snake story every night for 5 years.
Are you serious?
Every night. Occasionally, he would also tell another story, but the snake story every night.
Where you reckon they want one?
Reckon where do...
Okay, I got it wrong. I'm sorry.
And no, it's great. And so if you've never seen that, Google that. Wendy Bagwell. But it was just a master communicator, as you say. Fair guy. Yeah. He was always fighting for the underdog. I think he felt like the underdog, you know. Yep. And we would have a local group on in front of us. And I remember one time in particular, I don't even know if you'd know who this was, but there was a promoter, and he was going to... promoters are notorious for not paying what they might have agreed to. So he was going to short the local group. You know, maybe he promised them a couple $100, and he was going to give them $50 or something. You know. And Wendy went to him and said, "No, if you short anybody, you short me.
Wow.
You do not short them. You understand me? Now you can take it up with Ed Harper Monday. That was always his." I thought Eddie's last name was Monday for 3 years. Call Eddie Monday. Geraldine, call Eddie Monday. But he would stand up for the underdog like that. I always thought that was so cool, man. He was that way for everybody. He knew I wanted to do sessions. He offered me to move to Atlanta, and I didn't want to live in Atlanta. I wanted to live here. I was from Kentucky, and so I lived in Kentucky for a year. Moved here the second year of my Wendy Bagwell days, and started my session thing. And Wendy said, "Well, then we need to use you on sessions if we can. That's the only way you're going to get started, you know."
It was just true.
So John Mays and said he needs to play on our records. And so Bobby All had started. Vic Clay had finished producing them. He did the number one, the Walk Around Me Jesus cut. And that was right as I was coming in. And then so Bobby started producing, and I had met Bob at this. Now I'm rabbit trailing on you. Is that okay?
No, that's great.
Bobby's a session player, played on Brooks and Dunn, and played on Trisha Yearwood and Doug Stone, everybody. So I had met him. They had a TV show called The Gospel Jubilee.
Yeah.
Was that in on TNN?
Remember the sponsor? Stand Back Pain Powders.
Oh, that's right. Wendy's, Snap Back with Stand Back.
Can you sing the theme?
No.
Jubilee.
Oh, no. Okay, we're talking about a different Jubilee. You're talking about
the original.
The original. I'm asking the name of the one that was on TNN that Eddie Crook was the music director.
So you just got to hear me sing for free.
Jubilee.
There you
did
go.
Right key too. You actually did.
You're invited.
It's very good. Yes, and they come over the hill.
Yes.
I watched that when I was a kid. My gosh.
Yeah, me too.
Never dreamed that was you on there. No. So anyway, Sunday mornings were the Jubilee, and watching Janet Paschal and Jimmy Swaggart.
And and John Starnes. That's the truth. Wow. That is the truth.
Do you know that John Starnes performed my wedding ceremony? He married Kathy and me.
Man, he's one of my favorite singers. Seriously, I know I say another favorite, but John Starnes, one of the most underrated singers. I always
he
thought.
sang the Lord's Prayer at our service and married us. Yeah, and he got it too high. He sang it a cappella and got it too high. Yeah. And boy, did the kingdom come. But anyway, so back to Wendy. So we he knew I wanted to do sessions. He got me kind of plugged in, got my name in the hat, so to speak. And then I met Bob on this show they were doing on TNN. It lasted about 2 years. And Bobby and Bruce Watkins were the two guitar players on there, just great, dear friends of mine. And so I started going with him to sessions and just sitting in, and he would let me do that. He subbed me out after about 6-8 months. He started subbing me out to producers, and he would tell them, he said, "If you can't get me, get him, because he sounds like me," which was a lie. I didn't sound like him. I wanted to, but he had such finesse.
He was amazing.
His voicings were so good, but he was really good to me, and I wouldn't have had any work in this town had it not been for Bobby All and Ben Spear.
So Bobby would get near his last days, they would lead him to the chair. Remember, they would walk, and he'd sit there all day.
Yeah. He was gosh, such a kind soul too, and introduced me to Duke's mayonnaise too. So there's that.
Wow.
But anyway, he kind of got me involved there, and then so you asked me about Wendy. So I played on the last 5 Wendy Bagwell records, and I produced the last Wendy Bagwell record that they did. And I saw Jan Buckner, who was the lead singer for Wendy and the Sunlighters, 2 months ago at her homecoming. I went down and performed with her in Atlanta.
Wow. I love that.
And she just had a very significant birthday, and is still.
You're not going to out her?
I'm not going to do that. She looks 40 years old. I don't know what the deal is, but she's ageless, timeless.
Did she play mandolin at one point? In the early days?
She plays a little bit of everything. The thing you may be thinking about is the auto harp. She played auto harp on something.
I thought I saw a picture years ago.
She could have.
But so
she played bass with them, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you were with them, you played piano, right?
Why would you bring this up? To your death. You were supposed to take this to the grave.
Because.
How much do I have to pay to get it?
Is that right though?
I played guitar, and on
songs.
Certain songs I played piano. Yeah, I did. Enough.
Okay, so there's an old Wendy Bagwell clip, and I probably shouldn't even say this because I'll have
We're all gonna have to Google this.
This is horrible.
Look it up.
But I think there was a band behind them, and back in that day, a lot of times they would do video, but get players. I see Sykes on instruments that you know he didn't play, or Woody Wright standing back there.
Right.
But there was a guy on a Wendy Bagwell video years ago that I may be wrong, but it sure looked like Andy Tolberg playing piano.
Oh, could have been. If it was a Sing Out America thing, especially maybe, but I don't know.
Those were where they brought in the ringers, but Andy was not a piano player.
Sing Out America, if you were in the room, you got to play an instrument. Because they just played the track. And everybody just sat and, Sykes played mandolin with no strings. On one thing.
I played fiddle on one of those, and I had black tape, and I taped the strings down.
So what makes that,
My dad one time saw a Sing Out America, and he said, "Boy, that Spear band never sounded better." And I said, "Dad, that's a track." And he said, no, I see you playing. I said, "You see a drummer?"
That's funny. Yeah, no drums. That's right. That's right. Fun. Well, now let me tell you a funny story about that. So, live with Wendy, I had played on the tracks, you know, on the record, and then I would play something over the top of that if I was using a track, or I had sequenced. In those days, you know, the late 80s, we were sequencing a lot. I would have bass and drums sequenced, and so that would give us a foundation, and I could play guitar or piano over that. And we had one other player, you know, that would usually, when I was there, it was one of 2 or 3 guys. So, do you remember Benny Johnson? Benny that played with Jimmy Swaggart for years, played guitar and harmonica. I don't know if Benny was playing when I came, and he was a great player. And a guy named Tim Eford was there. Anyway, so I came in and started doing this electronic stuff, and Wendy wanted me to play piano live on something. He liked the show of that. He wanted me to play the guitar and then swing the guitar around and let it hang.
Sure.
And walk up and do this thing, and then grab the mandolin and let the guitar hang and do, you know. And I play all of this stuff except piano's pretty weak, you know. I would never call myself a piano player. So we had this one song we were doing that we cut with Gary Prim in the studio, and Prim had played this beautiful pig kind of intro, you know, it was beautiful. And I could play the whole song except the intro. So I left the intro on the track. And then after the intro, it goes away. And it's me live for the rest of the song, right? So for the intro, I'd turn the keyboard down, do this, turn the keyboard back up, play the rest of the song. I'm playing 98% of the song.
Yeah.
Don't play the intro. And we're with the Kingsmen one night, and Anthony Berger comes up with a kid about this high, probably Cody McVeigh or somebody, you know, and says, "Hey, he's really interested in how you play the intro on that song. It sounds so much like something Gary Prim would have played."
Are you kidding?
No, Berger did this.
Nailed it.
And we were, you know, we're deep friends, man. And I'm going. But see, he didn't just come up to kid me about it. He brought a human being with him, an impressionable young human being. And so I said, "Really?" Sound like Gary does it. And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's a compliment. Thank you. And he said, could you show him how you play that? And I said, you know what? It's unplugged and I don't have power. I wish I could next time. And but he would relentlessly tease me about the eight bars I did not play. I played 15 instruments, 8 bars I did not play, and that's what.
Okay, so and that same note, when Gaither was at maybe Carnegie Hall and Mark Lowry did "You Needed Me."
How'd you know that? That was me.
It had to be you.
How did you know that?
Because I know your style.
That's weird. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
And I helped write part of that. He and I think Martha Bolton had written the crux of it, but I contributed a few lines in there. And he came over to my studio one day and said, "I've got to do this song." And so we finessed that a little bit.
Funny.
And then he said, "Show me some stuff I can do on guitar." And I showed him one thing. I showed him that little flamenco thing that he actually plays. And then the rest of the time, it's me.
Have you seen that, Dusty?
No.
He's wearing like a Porter Wagner suit.
It was Mac McGahe's suit that played fiddle for Porter. He didn't even fit into the suit, okay? And it's actually Mac's suit. He showed up, had the whole rhinestones on, and he said, "Well, Bill, I've gone country or something, like that." And he does the one little lick I taught him and does it poorly. And then
he'd turn around, he'd spin around whenever it was really fancy.
He did a parody to "You Needed Me."
Yeah.
And then every now and then I would just take off, and I'm sitting over here at side stage where the band is, and I would just take off on a riff, and he would turn around, and that head would go,
and then spin back around at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, then in the middle, he got a good laugh. And I went into the James Brown thing. I went and we had the whole band doing the Brown thing, which was totally unrehearsed. And he starts hopping like Pepe Le Pew. You remember this? Around the stage, and then finishes the song. He was totally pro. I mean,
well, and that's who he is, and that's who you are. But I'm watching that going.
Being the Oz there. I love being the guy behind the curtain.
Yeah. But he knew when that lick was going to end, and he'd spin around right at the end.
And we were playing off each other, like with his body language. When he came back around, I ended. Too. So, but that's strange that you know that. Nobody knows that. That's very good.
You're so smart.
All right, let me ask you a couple.
Each get 1 point for today.
One point. That's it.
A couple more windy questions.
I wish we had more time, but I'm yours.
Ushers. So. Again, I asked questions that I always wanted to know the answer to. Wendy always looked like he was playing a Sunburst D28, but I never saw Martin on the headstock.
It was a D35.
But how come I never could see the name on it? I thought maybe it was
probably worn off by the capo that he kept up there or something.
You know what?
But it did have Martin on it. It's in the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken. I strung it and tuned it every night.
Wow.
Sunburst, a D35 that Roy Lewis talked him into buying.
Wow.
He played a Yamaha before that. So in the days, their heyday, they've been endorsed by Gibson. He had a Gibson SG played. Yeah. He had one that Simi Mosley made him, He had this
he had a Mosrite.
Matching Mosrites.
And Little Jan played one too.
Oh, yeah, she had the Mosrite bass.
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful. So
did Dottie Rambo.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's right.
And he custom made it for her because of her tiny little hands.
I would love to play that guitar sometime.
I know right where it's at.
Oh, my gosh, that'd be a thrill for me.
She has a custom white pearl. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. That's amazing, Dusty. Yeah. Well, and he was playing a Yamaha in the 80s sometime, and Roy Lewis said, "Why you want to go play a guitar like that?" And Wendy said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Somebody expect you to play something like a Martin or something. Why don't you get you a good Martin?" And so he coaxed him, goaded him into buying that Martin D35. I think his wife bought it for him.
He used that for a long time. Mm-hmm. Why do I remember something about this? Maybe well-based.
These stories.
Did he own a furniture store?
Yeah,
he sure did. Bagwell Sales out of Marietta there in Hiram, Georgia. Okay. And he sold all the gospel artists' furniture.
Because Buck and Dottie moved to Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Interesting.
Right? Him and his wife, it started with an M. Melba came to their house. That's where I first met him.
Yeah.
And he sat down with Dottie and told her what she needed. And it was hilarious. I've forgotten about this till you just said the furniture store. And watching them go back and forth. did Dottie.
Interesting.
Pricing, everything.
Oh, yeah.
And he furnished their house.
He had great prices. And
great prices.
He would go to Winston-Salem and all these places, to the furniture market, and at the end of the market, he would buy all the samples.
Yep.
Load them back, and his building was an old church house in Hiram, Georgia.
Yep.
He had sofas in the baptistry.
Yep.
The baptistry was stacked with sofas. And
That's
I bought furniture from it.
Every Southern gospel artist would buy
interesting.
furniture.
That must have come along at the end of that. We had to buy ours at real price. I'm not bitter, but maybe that's why I remember it.
you know, and he had oddities too, like a beautiful looking dresser that was a one-off kind of piece. It was
So we talk about different instruments. I love the story of history of instruments.
Me
And
too.
there's a picture I sent to Mark Spear this week, and it's an old drawing. You may have seen it, but it's a cartoon, and the caption under it, somebody's edited it, and says, "I don't remember your name, but I remember you played a 1938 Martin." It's like guitar players are
Yes,
that way.
that's the way we do.
So
Yeah.
you played like a blue
65 Strat.
Strat.
Yeah, Fender Stratocaster that I moved to town with. The 65 Stratocaster and a 64th Princeton Reverb that I moved to town with. And I sold the guitar, and I wish I had it back.
Wow.
But I still have the amp. I have that 64 Princeton Reverb. That was a beautiful guitar, and I loved it.
It was. And you also, there were times I saw you with a black talk.
Yeah, I still have that, the 341C. Yeah. And so I moved to town with that, if I'm not mistaken, or got it right after I got here. And that became the Steve Wariner model after Steve endorsed that particular model. He added some inlay and stuff, but the 341C.
You were also the first player that I ever saw use a slide on the
Glider. Oh, like a capo?
Yeah. No,
An actual slide? I did. Yeah, I had a ring slide that I used for a long time, and now I actually use a full-on if I'm doing that. I got a weird dobro sound out of that. I could roll the high end off and do a little trick.
Interesting.
It's weird.
So
it's obscure. You're a noticer. I love this.
well, but I'm a writer, and writers are noticers, and you see things that a lot of people may not see.
Oh, it's true. That's true.
Because I'm not smart enough to have enough ideas of my own. So I'm
That's not
watching
true.
you.
Writers look at the world through a different window.
Yes,
and I love that.
They
And
sure
without
do.
writers, we would have... Well, like that Benson quote you gave me at the top of this program. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know...
And Bob Benson was my Sunday school teacher when I first moved here.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I'm with the Spears, and I'm on Ezrine, and I'm following all those, and all the stories were connected. We did one of these podcasts we did with Bob Clark. Do you remember Bob?
Love Bob. Yes.
He said it was the first interview he's ever done.
I bet it was.
It was unbelievably fascinating. My favorite quote he said was, he said, we do the Hemphills, and he said, it didn't matter if it was a fast song or a slow song, it was always 3 minutes. And he wasn't being funny, and I'm going...
This is an engineer that engineered many of the great Benson records for years. And I brought him back a dozen years ago or so. I produced a record on Mark Lowry that was love song, big band kind of thing. Had Fly Me to the Moon and I'll Be Seeing You and What a Wonderful World, all those songs on there. And I brought Bob in to record the orchestra.
Wow.
I thought nobody gets an orchestra like Bob does, and so he did that with me.
We did about a month ago, we did a guy named Derek Johnson. I don't know if you know Derek.
Yeah.
He, 92, drove from Florida, sit in a room with us, and Bob and Joni came and sat in the audience. It was not
really
audience,
amazing.
but they just sat there.
It was precious.
I bet it was.
So, you're talking about lineage of instruments, and guitars does, if you don't play, you may not, most of them have a name, and they all have a story.
Do you play it all? Okay.
So,
I just know Dottie Rambo had a Martin. That's all she had. And a Mozart. She had her little Mozart that she
Spears, first 2 years I was with him, I played bass, and I replaced John Mays.
Yeah, that's right.
So back in that day, you all had to dress alike.
Yeah.
Glory be to God.
And John, I opened that closet and got that suit out. I thought, we got a problem here.
John's a little tall and
a little taller. And, but Spears had and John left to pursue sessions and was a great player. But
great player.
they had an old Fender Jazz,
Yeah.
and it was quite an instrument. I didn't. It was above my play grade, but I knew I was playing a nice instrument. And I asked Ben one time, "Where'd you get that?" He said he swapped. I think it was Uncle Alphys. He swapped him for something to get that bass.
gosh.
You know Ben.
Yeah.
He never met a deal he couldn't
Right.
make.
Right.
So, and on that note, you ended up with a pretty amazing, when you talk about the lineage of an instrument, you ended up with a Stromberg.
I did. I bought Brock Spears Stromberg Master 400 from him and owned it for many years. Used it on a ton of sessions. You can hear it on a lot of the Gaither songs. We did this one. It comes to mind. We did Journey to the Sky, and it needed that. You know, just moved a lot of air.
A big
Loved that guitar. Yeah, it had a 19 and a half inch bout. It was the biggest bout. It was a guitar Freddie Green played, you know, with Count Basie and all that. So I was a fan of this guitar.
Wow.
And Brock, in his later, you know, this was his last years, and he told me, he said, I think I'd like to sell it, Kev. He said, I think I'd rather have the money than the prestige of owning it.
Wow.
That was kind of funny. And so I bought it, and then I kept it for a number of years. And, you know, gosh, you get to a point where you got so many instruments and you need to do something. We were starting to have kids, and so I consolidated some stuff, and I sold that guitar to John Minnick, and he has that guitar.
I did not
To
know
this
that.
day, John has it.
Wow.
He plays it on some sessions, I think, occasionally too. He's a good, you know, good archtop player too.
John
Minnick, yes, he really is. I know everybody associates piano with him.
Yep.
I did a session for him one time where I was replacing guitar that he had recorded on synth. So he had put all the instruments down with synth parts and then brought it in to do real guitar with me. And the synth guitar was as good as what I played. It was brilliant. He's a brilliant musician on all that stuff. So, yeah.
Wow.
But he has that guitar now. It's a fine instrument. And 1941, maybe, or 44. It's
So, without telling what you paid for it, people listening might be interested in what a guitar like that is worth.
that guitar's probably worth $30,000 now.
Wow.
I would imagine. Yeah. I didn't pay that.
Now, you know, my next door neighbor is Jimmy Fortune.
Yeah, I didn't know he's your next door neighbor.
Has been for 22 years.
Yeah, he throws loud parties. I don't like that.
His kitchen is one of the coolest rehearsal rooms.
I bet it is.
But you talk about a guitar collection.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got great guitars. He does.
And you know the answer to the question, how many is enough guitars?
One more.
One more,
Yeah,
sure.
right. Yeah, he's got great stuff. I love Jimmy. He's a good player too. Some people own good instruments and aren't great players, and he's a great musician. I don't know.
I'm that guy.
I don't know about that.
I don't believe that.
I don't know.
I asked my kids about a month ago, I said, any interest in me keeping my banjo, or is it something I should sell?
That's not a question you ask, Dave. You just keep that one inside.
Well,
Inside voice.
when I back with Spears, I had to play it every night to come out and do "I'll Fly Away."
Right.
Finally, I said to Brock one night, "Can I at least play a different song?" And he go, "No." And I said, "Okay." And I was okay.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my love, and it can get tedious anyway. But especially the same song, it's like the rattlesnake story.
Right.
And Brock said, "Let me tell you something about the banjo. Nobody likes it but the people."
I heard that saying.
And you
So
go,
did your kids want the banjo? Did they want the banjo?
Cindy told me later that Allison, our oldest daughter, told her, "Hey, don't let him sell that. I want to learn to play it at some point."
Yeah, good.
Okay, that's good. I wonder if they'd said no, let it go.
That's funny.
And in fact, they used to kid me because I had to play the show at Church, a variety thing one night, and I opened it up. I hadn't opened it for so long that in where I put the picks, I found those two KM84 mics that I wondered what happened to them.
No way.
Old original
Oh my
vintage.
gosh.
Yeah.
I would love to have a pair of those.
So that was the joke is,
Wow.
don't you need to play the banjo again? See if there's any microphones or
That
anything.
is unbelievable. Our dear friend who went to be with the Lord, Joe Bonzel, played banjo, and so with the Oak Ridge Boys, he was the tenor for the Oak Ridge Boys. So we were together one night, and I said, Joe, we were doing a taping on the Oaks. I said, Joe, get your banjo out. And I heard those other three guys were like, oh, Lord, oh, God, no. It was really funny. Banjo gets no respect, you know.
Well, and a lot of times it doesn't earn it. and you know, growing up, I've never met Little Roy, but he put out a record LP called The Gospel Banjo. And when I was in Michigan, to think that you could play gospel music on a banjo, that was a big deal for me. And you talk about Joe Bonzo, I did a phone interview on a project I was working on, and he got to tell those stories. And one of the funniest interviews I've ever done with anybody. Yeah. And I have the audio of it. And at some point,
you gotta, do something with that.
There are some people who would love some of the old quartet stories that he told that at everybody's expense.
He's great. I miss him. And he was always fun. We got to. My band that plays for the Gaithers, I say my band, I get to lead these guys, and it's a privilege for me. But we got to back the Oaks, many times on things. Because
think about that.
They would interface well. It's huge.
Wow.
And we always end up playing Elvira, But we did their hymns project, and we did a thing with the vocal band in the Oaks, and all that stuff. So same with the Gatlins, and that's another group that we get to interface with quite often. But I would always pull that banjo thing with Joe, and knowing the response from the other three is just going to be.
So when Jimmy left
Statler's,
his first date to ever sing was with opening up for the Oaks.
I didn't know that.
His first solo date.
Wow.
And so he was so nervous because he had never in his life, he'd always played in bands in high school, and he all of a sudden he was going to be out on his own. And so he said Joe Bonzo called him to the back of the bus. And I heard Joe's side of it. Joe said, I knew he needed to relax. And so he said, we just talked banjo because Jimmy knew enough to help. So he was asking, and wouldn't you love to have heard that conversation?
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that night, Jimmy goes out to sing and says he was so nervous, he claims he could hear his knees hitting together.
I bet he would.
And said all of a sudden, he sees an apple roll past his feet, and then another one, and then another one. And he looked over, and Bonzo was over the edge of the stage rolling apples out to make Jimmy relax. And those kind of old stories are legendary. I love those.
That's fun, man. Oh yeah.
So you get to Gaither, you're 3 decades plus now, and there was a. I'll check that out. There's a.
Oh, I think that's pretty funny.
I won't tell you what singer, but one of the ladies from Gaither was at my studio one day, and I said, so tell me something that I don't know by just watching Bill. And she didn't hesitate. She said, you never sit in the purple chair. If you sit in the purple chair up front, you're next to go.
That's so bad.
And they were laughing. And I thought, well, then I could never watch that show again without
thinking who's in the purple chair.
That's so bad. I love it.
But the resurgence that he gave to an entire
it's great.
a genre of music that he loved as a kid. And he saw something work. And we talked to Gerald Wolfe the other night, and Gerald's doing that with the hymns, and you see something and you go, I don't have to understand why it works. I just know that it does. And I was up at
it's good.
Up at Alexandria at the studio cutting something last year, and Chad
Evans.
Yeah, great engineer. Who used to work out at Sound Barrier here in Nashville.
Sure did for Trey. Yeah, that's right. I go back that far. That's so funny.
So, yes, not many people remember Trey. Do you remember what he would shut his studio down for once a year?
A haunted house.
He made a haunted house.
He owned a haunted house.
He had this full tracking room, and he said he could make more money at a haunted house, so he would shut it down from
that is
late summer until... Anyway.
That place was in Inglewood, somewhere up in there.
Yeah, right by just south of Briley Parkway on Gallup Road.
Right.
Sound Barrier.
Yeah, that's where I met Chad, too. Yeah.
Wow.
And Woody Wright had a studio in the basement of there. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
I'm here
He's
for
had
you.
a studio in the basement of everywhere. That's
Well, if you don't pay your rent, you just have to keep moving.
Woody. So I had a studio in Nashville for 15 years. I had Upfront Studios, and Woody held the record for having his car broken into the most times at our studio.
Wow.
Three times, friends.
Do you know Woody?
Oh yeah.
One of the funniest.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
funny.
very funny. He's got so many Willie Wynn stories.
Yeah.
He worked with Willie and just loved him, reveres him.
So all that to say,
Yeah.
this is where our interviews go.
You were up in Indiana.
And
That's before you fell asleep, or we fell
Yeah.
asleep. So
and I'm with you. I
I feel
said,
like I'm watching grumpy old men on TV.
Yes. So I said, so when Bill comes in, and you got to know, I'm always, Dusty would say, I'm always asking questions because I just want to know answers.
I love it. I'm just like
I said, when Bill comes in, what's he do?
yeah.
What's the first thing he does? And the answer blew me away. And this is last year, so he's like what, 90 years old or close to
He's
it.
88 right now.
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
And said he goes directly to the office to check on how many streams he had that day.
He does. That's right.
See,
He does. He can tell you how many they had the day
I
before
love
and
that.
something.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
He knows his numbers. Now, he didn't, in the age of technology, he didn't
Right.
always know that.
Right.
He had to be
Right.
educated on that. But now he knows what's good and what's bad and what's medium.
Yeah. It's brilliant to see what they have done with the YouTube and all of the stuff that Gaither is doing musically.
And I feel obligated, I think,
Yeah.
to say this as we're talking about a guy who, how many to sell last night, what they asked for. And we're saying those things about him. It's none of that is in the name of commercialism or dollars. I can honestly say that. I mean, if you know somebody for 32 years, you pretty much know that. If he wanted to, if it was all about the money, I think he'd just pick another business. There's plenty of other business.
I've always felt,
But it's about
it's
doing it better.
and it's getting to the heart of the people. That's what I always feel. I mean,
How do you get
you
to better?
two were not
Yeah.
at the very first Gaither video. I was.
That's
with Buck
right.
Rambo.
You sure were.
Dottie wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was just all of us getting together in that house over.
That's right.
I
I don't even know the name of that.
It was over by the old Word building
Yeah.
over there. And I remember that was the first time I met him in Gloria. And I remember thinking, he was brilliant. Now that's been 40 years.
It was about 90,
Yeah.
probably.
But I
91.
remember thinking, this man cares about this music.
Yeah.
Watching him
He sure
maneuver the people and love on the Paul and Ann Downings,
Yeah.
the Buck Rambo, the Vestal and Howard,
Right.
Michael English. I was there that first time. And I remember walking away from thinking, this is pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Pretty
Yeah.
incredible. The prayer where they prayed, Dottie was so sick.
that's right.
Hearing them pray and having Bill pray, it was very cool. It was for the first homecoming. It was for the first Gaither vocal band record. It was
Right.
going to be one song, and it turned into a whole day of event.
Because Larry Gatlin said, Eva May, sit down at the piano and play something.
That's exactly. I forgot about that. That is
And
exactly.
she sat
what-
down and played "I'll Meet You in the Morning,"
and it just exploded.
and it took off.
Yeah.
And so Bill went to, as the story goes, and you can correct me, went to the camera guys and whoever's in charge and said, "What are you going to do with all that other footage?" And they said, "Well, nothing. We got what we needed."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, can I have it?"
Yep.
And he said, "I would just sit home and watch it." It wasn't at home then. He didn't have his setup,
yeah.
at home. He went to Don Boggs over at Anderson University. And had Don, it's all time coded, and so they have ISO cameras. And he put it all together where he could watch all the screens at one time. He said, "I sat there and wept.
Oh,
This is my childhood,
Yeah.
And this is a guy that cares about primarily the songs.
yes.
Primarily,
Yeah, always.
I mean,
Yep.
it comes down to songs with him.
Yep.
And secondly, harmony. I think so. People try to stylize him. He's always evaded that. I think. How do you put Bill Gaither in a style? I've heard him called Southern Gospel, and it is sort of that. But it's about harmony, and whatever that looks like and ends up being, call it what you want. But it's about a song and harmony, and then delivery and passion.
Yep.
It builds on the song, I think.
And he's got an innate tempo in his head that has nothing to do with music.
That has nothing to do with anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say speak Gaither, so I'm gonna show you a picture, and I'm gonna hold it up so the camera can see it. But
Oh my goodness.
the night I met Bill Gaither,
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Look at that.
Okay, that is
Wow.
first of all, that's your son.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Oh,
Wow.
that is awesome.
So that's how,
Is that at the Dove Awards or something?
yeah, that's how you used to dress at the Doves.
And he was Songwriter of the Year that year, probably.
Always, yeah.
And you wanted to be.
I just wanted to write,
Yeah.
you know, and
Amazing.
Too.
Amazing.
so I had written a song, and Ben introduced me to him, knowing, and so Bill, just a couple of months ago when they did the Enlighten launch in Nashville,
Yeah. I think this is the last time I saw you.
Yep.
so I walked in and he saw me and he was talking to Jason Clark, and he said, "I'm going to tell you Dave Clark's story." Well, just that Bill Gaither knows my name is a big deal for a guy who still wants to be a writer, you know.
Yep.
So the night that picture was taken, and Bill told me later, so I don't tell that often because it makes me sound like I'm something I'm not, but so I just told it here now on the podcast, so it's out now.
Yeah.
But evidently, the story goes, Bill asked me where I was from, and evidently, to hear Ben tell it, I said, Jackson, Michigan. I was so nervous.
You should have just said right here.
Well, I should have. Yeah. But Ben, you really can't go there. So Ben later said, "Why were you so nervous meeting Bill Gaither? You met the President of the United States and weren't that nervous." And I said, "Well, I would have been if he had written He Touched Me."
Oh, wow.
Now, I wasn't being funny. I was serious.
Yeah.
I shook hands with Jimmy Carter when he was president, but I wasn't as nervous as the night that picture was taken with Bill Gaither.
Was that about 78 or something? What was that?
It would have been, probably 80, somewhere in there.
Wow.
So Ben tells Bill that story. So Bill pulls that out last year and told it
That's
to
funny.
Jason. And you know what? When you think, we were at the Brothers of the Heart taping at Rory's last year, and we go in and there's seats with names on them. And I walked in, I looked at my wife and I said, "See who's on the seat next to me?" It was Bill Gaither's name. You had
Perfect.
I said, "This is gonna be a good night."
Yeah.
Because I'm still the fan. And so Bill walks in and he says, "Hey, Dave, come on here. I want to play something." So he goes out in that front room at Rory's, holds up his phone, and he plays me a new song that he was working on with Larry Gatlin.
Yep.
And it was called
Hole in the Heart.
Hole in the Heart.
He played it for so many people because he believed in that song.
And part of me is thinking, what universe am I living in
Where he's playing you a song.
where he's playing me?
I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool.
And you know, when I was young, I got a meeting with him, and I said, "I'm young enough, I can go on with my life unless you think there's something here." And he said the greatest advice he could have given to me. He said, "Just say you're sniffing around all the right places."
Oh, that's good.
And that was perfect.
Yeah.
And the night before Brock Spear died, I ran into him up at the hospital. They kind of gathered everybody in, and Brock was, like family. And somebody said, "Bill, you remember Dave?" And Bill's, and it was that year we had like 5 number ones for him and Philip Strickendine. I mean, we were getting enjoying some neat moments.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I'd seen Bill since he had told me I was sniffing around the right places. And there's never been an ounce of, I found it, because I'm still sniffing. I'm still looking.
Yeah.
But that season of all the seasons was the one where we were winning big. And outside of Brock's room in the hospital, Bill said, "So are you writing anymore?"
I love that.
And I said, "A few."
A few.
And and it was kind of like your early conversation with him. You walk away and you go, "You know what? He remembered that I write.
Yeah.
I win."
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So the Hole in the Heart of Heaven. It goes to Nealon's thing, and what I said earlier about the view that you've had, except for looking at Bill's backside for 30 years, you've had a pretty good.
That's changed as well.
So there's that.
Yeah, there's that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's funny.
But
Well, yes.
I shouldn't pause at that word, should I? But you, in that age group,
Yeah.
you have seen the grief up close too. And I got a text from you on the platform at the funeral that we went through this summer, and it just said, "I love you." And there was we came out of that, and I think about that song that Bill was playing that ended up being the cut by the Nealons, and Mark Lowry that week came in and sat in the chair where you're sitting, and he was more vulnerable and broken, and we're all trying to still reconcile this, and
we're saying this on the day that Autumn Streetman has had her baby.
Yeah. And Kelly's birthday.
Kelly's birthday last night.
Yeah.
And, was the baby born this morning, I guess?
I was born yesterday. Kelly's birthday was
On the
yesterday, December 1st.
And so, yes, funny and all the jokes and all the things you've learned, and yet you've watched some incredible moments from a trusted seat.
Yeah.
It's been the best seat in the house. That's going to be the name of my book, is The Best Seat in the House.
I love that. I love that.
And it would be full of moments. And to say one was more important or more beautiful or more poignant than another would be an injustice. I remember a very vulnerable moment, and it's on video. You can find it. But we were in that room at Bill's studio up there, and we had taped for 3 days. This was the third day, if I remember right. And so we're all worn down by that point. That's when the truth comes out. So on the third day,
that's the truth.
And we've sung and we've quote, performed, I guess you'd say. But by the third day, you're just there and you're just real.
Yeah.
And Howard Goodman, in the middle of a song, said. He talked about wanting to give it all up at some point. He said in the middle of the night, the devil would come to me and say, "It's just not worth it. And why would you keep doing this? And why would, And then he went into, I don't regret a mile.
I don't regret a single mile.
I've traveled for and so you talk about a moment. We were on stage at Carnegie Hall. I love to say that to my kids. I will say, one time I was on stage at Carnegie Hall, and so a beautiful time there. Obviously, we've had wonderful venues we've done these videos in. And George Yantz, he was singing with the Old Friends Quartet. They had put together George and Jake Hess. Wesley Pritchard was in there, and Ernie Haas. This is before Signature Sound and all that. So they were singing, and George had a defibrillator in. He'd had it installed, and it kicked right toward the end of the song, right before the tag of the song. We're on stage at Carnegie Hall, and that thing kicks like a mule, And so what you see when you see their song on the video, they cut away and they do some stuff. When they come back to George, you can see the expression on his face as he finished the tune. But if you don't know what you're looking for, you probably don't notice it. If you're looking at George's expression, you can tell it. And then we were headed toward a tribute. We were going to do A Few Good Men. This was right after 9/11. And we were going to bring out all the first responders and bring out and salute them on stage at Carnegie Hall. This is going to be monumental, right? We just need a few good men. As the group with George exited the stage, they went back, and the paramedics who were back there started to check George out, checking his blood pressure. They opened him up, checking his heart and all that stuff, make sure he's okay. And as we're doing A Few Good Men, and it came time for all these first responders to march on. Here comes the firemen, here comes the police. The paramedics, who were supposed to get their moment in the sun, stayed back there with George Yantz, checking him out.
Oh, my stars.
Doing what they do.
Oh, gosh.
People you'll never see, but
oh my gosh,
important people. And that was a moment to me, and Wesley Pritchard knows this story too. I bet there's not 5 people that know this story. And huge. I'll tell you another one. We were, I got the privilege of doing so many Billy Graham crusades. I bet we did 10 of those, maybe 12 in the time I've been there. I'm not sure. And the last one in Flushing Meadow, New York, with over 100,000 people. It's the most people I've ever seen in my life. And they're just forever, a sea of people out there. And by this point, Dr. Graham was failing. He couldn't stand for the sermon. Okay, so he had to be seated for the sermon. And so everybody was used to seeing this tall podium with a tall Billy Graham, at the podium, and they didn't want that to look any different. And they had arranged where they would get him up on a motorized wheelchair kind of thing. They'd get him to the podium. They had a ramp built. Now I'm going to describe this poorly, but it was a ramp to the podium, had a chain drive in it, and a seat at the bottom. So they would transfer him from this to that. He'd get on the seat. The guy would click a little switch, and the motorized thing would ramp him up, and all of a sudden he would be up at the podium sitting, and he didn't have to walk up to it. Now, does that make sense the way I've described it? Okay.
Yeah.
So chain drive, little groove in the middle. I remember all this stuff, the mechanics of it. And he would get up here, and he'd be able to preach. They got him up there while the choir was singing, so all the cameras are on the choir. And I'm watching him go up. And when he gets up here, the seat, as it gets to the very top of the track where it's going to sit for the next 30 minutes while he preaches, it does this. And it's got play in it. Oh, no. And this was going to be, uncomfortable and probably just get him off track, Yeah. And we could all see it's got this play in it. As he would turn, it would just play. And nobody had tested that, or I don't know how it happened. They had a stage manager on Graham's crew, and a short guy, I don't even know his name. I got to work with him a number of times. I still don't remember his name. Turned the walkie-talkie off, dove under this thing, and sat there for 30 minutes on his back. He laid on his back, studying Dr. Graham's. I think I'm the only one that, Rob Ranahan, our production manager at the time, knows this story as well, but outside of us. And so, unsung hero, studying the man of God.
Gosh.
And at one point in his sermon, Dr. Graham looks down and he sees this guy and he just says, "There's a man down here." And they sort of chuckle, not knowing what he means. And then he goes back to his sermon.
Wow.
And I've always admired somebody who sees a need and fills it and doesn't have to talk about it and doesn't have to be seen doing it. And those stories, like the paramedics and this thing, I've seen more of that kind of thing in 32 years than anyone would know. The moments in the studio were great, but the moments behind the scenes, the moments on the bus, the moments of doubt. There's not one of us at the Nealon's funeral who didn't have a doubt. Okay, we know God's real. I'm not saying that. But when it's a tragedy you can't understand, and if we can't make it work logically, then we begin to doubt. But God doesn't bow to logic. Right. He created logic, okay? So in those moments where you're human, I've seen these artists in those moments, and it's beautiful to just see the humanity. I've seen Bill discouraged at times, not often, but I've seen him question things, and what direction to do, in the coming year or even the coming week with a string of concerts we had going on. I remember when he was having a heart issue. And he walked up a hill. We were in Pittsburgh, and he walked up this little hill and got winded, and he got freaked out because he thought his heart was, giving him trouble again. And Vestal sat down with him, and she said, "Are you not the man who wrote, 'Because he lives, I can face tomorrow'? Because he lives, all fear is gone."
Of course, Vestal said that.
She said that to him. She would talk to the devil in his face.
She sure would. She sure would.
So. He went out on stage with some victory that night, and wow. I've seen those kind of things, just beautiful. And then I've seen the times where we were human in the worst way, and so that didn't go so well either, And it all just goes to show you that God loves and redeems humans, people with skin on. He created us and loves us.
Gosh.
We can't tell you how much it means to have you come out and sit down at a table with us.
I love this, Dave. I love it.
This is why
we love to tell the stories.
Why we love to tell the story.
I've got to listen to a lot of it today. Kevin, this is amazing.
We never got to your bio. It's pretty impressive. How can people find it?
It is impressive.
Well, I generally just hand them out, but I guess on the website. I've enjoyed this as well, and what you guys do with this is beautiful. And I love the way you tell stories, Dave. You are amazing at that.
Yes.
I've always been drawn to songwriters because, first of all, they're weird. Usually, they're wacky, and Gaither's no exception. And I appreciate being around that kind of person who looks at the world with art and poetry, and can describe it in some unique way that makes me. I have ministers who I respect, but I don't get much out of what they say. And then there are other guys who know how to coin the phrases that make me tick, that get it into me. And I love songwriters who can figure out a way within 12 lines to change my way of thinking about something or whatever. And you've always done that. You created.
I never assumed that those lines are original, but thank you. This has been awesome. And
have me back again. I'm free next Thursday if you want to have me back.
We would love this.
We would love that. We would love
it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
God bless you.